creating different ways that we can enjoy food. I mean, who doesn't love food? Everyone loves food, and we want to enjoy it differently every time. We want to have a different experience. So one of those creative processes are masterful art of fruit drying, which we will tackle today. So as we dive deeper into it, we want to learn from the food technology industry expert who has more than 30 years of experience through universities and different food industries. With a specialty in food drying, processing, and packaging, he is the best person to take us on this amazing journey. He had grants reaching more than 1 million New Zealand dollars and participated in multiple research, not only in the Philippines, but also abroad. So he has worked with a variety of well-known brands, which gives him the edge in this industry. So without further ado, I just want to give the floor, and I just want to introduce Foodstep Consulting's very own Dr. Lemuel M. Diamante.
Okay, thank you very much. I would say good day, everyone, because right now in New Zealand it's already evening, and I presume most who are in the Philippines, it's still afternoon there. But anyway, wherever you are, good day, everyone. So my topic today is about vacuum frying as a new drying method of fruits. Okay, so it will be the thesis of my discussion why it is so. So the drying of food such as fruits is a complicated process that involves simultaneous coupled heat and mass transfer for those who have that technical background, particularly under changing conditions. And just some basic about the phenomena in food drying, that there are two periods of drying, and this is the constant rate period, and this is in this period where the moisture on the surface of the material evaporates like that of an open pan of water, meaning the food product has that excess moisture. So that is the one that evaporates during the concentrate period. And then the pulling rate period, where the water from the interior of the food migrates to the surface and then gets evaporated into the air. So this usually takes several hours, while the concentrate period usually lasts between several minutes to even an hour as well. Next. So if we show it in terms of a drying curve, I don't know if my cursor is seen. So the concentrate period, this is the period. So drying curve is actually a plot of moisture content of the food and plotted against the time period. So the constant rate period is actually that period where the rate of decrease of moisture is constant. That's why it's called the constant rate period. And then it enters a new period called the pulling rate period. So in here, at every moisture content or at every time period, the rate keeps on changing. So if you are to plot that moisture content against the rate on a drying rate on this figure here, drying rate curve. So the drying rate on the y-axis and pre-moisture or moisture content on the x-axis, the constant rate period will be shown as a flat line, which means it's a constant rate there at that point. And then the pulling rate period will be a decreasing rate over the decrease of moisture content. And sometimes the pulling rate period could be just one pulling rate period, or it could be several stages, like 2 or 3, as shown there. Next. So the common way of drying fruits is by the use of a hot air dryer. So air drying of foods involves passing hot air over the material that is placed on the trays that will be dried using this dryer here. Next slide. So here is a schematic of what's inside the dryer. So you basically have trays of food products, and then you have a blower or a fan that would suck fresh air from the outside, and it would pass through heaters to heat up the air, and then it will be distributed into the different trays over inside the dryer. And either the used air will get recirculated, or it just get continuously fresh air will be added. So drying will continue until the moisture content of the food product will be at a safe level. However, the nature of a hot air dryer is there is not a uniform heating or drying of the products. So the technique there is to shuffle the trays of food. So if you are familiar with your dryer, you know where a lot of the food products is dried ahead than the other trays. So you try to shuffle that to even out the moisture of the final products. Next. And among the different factors affecting drying, the most important is drying temperature. So and as we know, the higher the temperature, the faster the drying. So however, it's not as simple as just keep on increasing, because there would come a time when the temperature is too high. So using higher temperatures would deteriorate the sensory properties and nutritional value of dried fruit. So there is a cutoff. Next. So this is due to the long drying period, because if you remember, I said that in hot air drying, there are two periods: the concentrate period, which is quite a short period, and the pulling rate period. And it is in this period where it will last several hours. In some products, it could last 8 to 12 hours. So during that time where it's subjected to the high temperature for a long time, the sensory qualities, sensory properties and sensory qualities of the product will be affected. So the hot air in the food drying process allows the water to evaporate, which is very slow, because that's why, if you recall my initial statement at the start, that it is a simultaneous heat and mass transfer. So during the pulling rate period, it is a mass transfer, and it is a very slow process. So the process of diffusion. And another reason also, because the boiling point of water at atmospheric pressure, which is the usual condition when hot air drying is done, happens at 100 degrees centigrade. So the farther you are to the drying, to the boiling point of water, the slower will be that drying. Next, please. Next, okay. So I'm just showing here the different dried fruits that are commercially available in the Philippines. Of course, this is just a sample. So the most popular of these, of course, are the dried mangoes, dried pineapple, papaya, dried bananas. I saw actually in the internet a dried strawberry, 70, and here it's a dried and some other dried fruits there. Next. So let me go now to the vacuum frying. Why? So in vacuum frying of foods, this involves evaporation of moisture also. So you might wonder why I'm calling vacuum frying as a drying process. So because the oil in the vacuum frying process actually serve as a heating medium. So it's not really to just simply fry the product. So it involves evaporation of moisture from the interior of the material that results in the dried product. Next, please. So as I've said, The drying medium in vacuum frying is oil, which is a liquid, of course. So therefore, it has a high heat transfer coefficient compared to the air medium used in hot air drying. In addition, because it is liquid, it can penetrate the interior of the food. So as a result of that, it would result in a shorter drying time when you are vacuum frying product. And the process also, in order for vacuum frying to occur, it must be in a closed chamber so that you can reduce the pressure. So if you look at this picture of a vacuum fryer, so that's the chamber there. So it is under, it's a closed system, and you use a vacuum pump to reduce the pressure inside here. So the theory there, the lower the pressure inside the chamber, the lower will be the boiling point of water. So for example, if you recall, the atmospheric pressure is 101.3 kilopascal. So if we reduce that pressure inside the chamber to say 2 kilopascal, that's more than 99%, anyway, over 90% reduction in pressure. So the boiling point of water is now only 18 degrees C. And there are even vacuum fryers that can go below 1 kilopascal. So, and this is at around 0.4, like the vacuum fryer I was using. And that is actually a point where the water will move from, so the process of sublimation, where if you freeze your food sample and you subject it to vacuum frying at a very, very low pressure, it will sublime the water inside the sample. Next, please. And so the vacuum fryer, you can process either fresh samples or you can freeze it. And in the process that I've done back in Visayas State University in Baybay, we always freeze the sample. The purpose of freezing the sample is double purpose, because as you know, fruits easily deteriorates. So the best way is, once you have blanched the fruit, you freeze it and just build up your stock for vacuum frying. That way, the quality of the fruit will no longer will deteriorate so much because it's at frozen condition. So, and then you can just take frozen samples as you need. Unlike if you have fresh fruits, then you have to continue processing it. Otherwise, it will deteriorate faster. So the oil temperature is then, so this is, if you look at this schematic diagram now, so the vacuum chamber, and inside the vacuum chamber, you have a basket where your food sample will be placed. At start, this basket will go up first above the oil level. So the purpose of that is so that you can tighten the lid of the vacuum frying chamber, and then turn on the vacuum pump to reduce the pressure here. But at the same time, you are also heating the oil using coils on the outside or inside. So when the target oil temperature and pressure are reached, then the sample is lowered again. So remember, I said the basket of sample will be above there. Then it will be lowered. So it will immerse the basket of sample into the oil. And as a result, there would be instantaneous evaporation of moisture, especially on the surface. And then over time, the interior of the food sample will also be penetrated by the hot oil and drive out the moisture. So, but it will not be a very fast process. And in my experience, usually it takes about 30 minutes, depending on the temperature, vacuum frying temperature, it will usually take 30 minutes to an hour to vacuum fry. But that is a very fast drying process compared with the standard hot air drying, which I said takes maybe 8 to 12 hours. In addition, the fruit sample will be dried for the required period, and it needs to be experimentally determined. Meaning, if you decide to vacuum fry a jackfruit, then you have to do trials and as to how long and at what pressure it is best to be done it, and you will get an acceptable product. But once you have established the process, then it is just a matter of repeating that process again. Next. Next, please. So because of the rapid drying time in vacuum frying, the sensory properties and nutrient qualities of the dried products are superior compared to the hot air dried products. And it's an entirely different product compared with the hot air dried product. Because for example, the dried product from vacuum frying are crunchy compared with the standard hot air dried fruits, which are chewy. Also, the color of the fruits doesn't deteriorate so much. So for example, if you vacuum fry a jackfruit, the golden color of jackfruit will still be there. The red color of papaya, if it is a red lady variety, it will still be there. The gold color of mango would still be there. So next, please. But there are disadvantages of vacuum frying. Because of the use of oil, there will be residual oil in the products. But that residual oil is much, much lower compared to the traditionally fried products. So meaning, if, for example, a fried banana, atmospheric fried banana, so meaning just the normal frying, will probably have moisture oil content of about 30% or higher. The residual oil in vacuum fried fruits will be around 20 to 30%. But in spite of that, I like, for example, I've done that on jackfruit, and here in New Zealand, I've done that on gold kiwi fruit. The oiliness of the product is not very pronounced actually, because of the crunchy and the good sensory qualities of the product. You could hardly notice it, especially for a sour product like the gold kiwi fruit, which I processed. And also for jackfruit, the jackfruit has an advantage because if you fry a vacuum fry a jackfruit at just half ripe level, it doesn't absorb so much oil compared when it's fully ripe. So there are advantages also on that. But another disadvantage also of vacuum frying is the cost of a vacuum fryer. So the cost of vacuum fryer is about 10 times higher than in hot air dried, the hot air dryer of the same capacity. So 10 times. So that's why the price of a vacuum fried product is much, much higher compared to hot air dried. But you have a premium because of the new sensory properties of a dried product. And as a result also, the packaging of the product needs aluminum laminate bags. So you cannot use just an ordinary plastic bag, even if it's a very thick, high density polyethylene bags. You got to use a layer of aluminum to inhibit oxygen entry and moisture that can deteriorate the vacuum fried product. Next. So at the present, and it's been around actually for several years now. The countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and China, and many others have been producing vacuum-dried fruits, as shown in the next slide, please. So these are some of the vacuum-dried products coming from other countries. So they're able to successfully vacuum fry mango, pineapple, papaya, banana. So the banana here, unlike when you just make a banana chips using atmospheric frying, generally when you process a fried banana, you process raw bananas actually, or maybe half ripe, and then you just sweeten it with sugar, and then you fry it using atmospheric frying. The vacuum fried banana, you can really process half ripe banana or even ripe bananas. So you don't introduce any more sugar. And of course, as I've said, jackfruit as well. So, and there are many others. I saw this one here. It's star fruit, and some have a combination. So they've been processed also. Use it for root crops. Next, please. In the Philippines, only vacuum fried jackfruit is available, and the first commercially available jackfruit actually was processed in by me when I was back at Visayas State University in 2005 yet, and this is the first product packaging here. And then we transferred, because I have to leave for New Zealand, so the technology is transferred to a bye-bye processor, and these are the succeeding products that we have. And eventually, I saw this one here, Philippine, another manufacturer in Mindanao. I think this is in Davao. So, and I also tried to search for vacuum fried products using the Shopee website, Shopee Philippines website. I only found one vacuum fried jackfruit, and none of this, but coming from Vietnam. So we have very limited production of vacuum fried fruits, which I said is only jackfruit, and we have not even processed other fruits. Next. So I feel that maybe it's time for the Philippines dried fruit processors to take advantage of the vacuum frying technology for fruits, as well as even for vegetables. In fact, not only for fruits, but if I move on, it could be applied to other products like seafoods and meats. So what you need to process are high value products. So you cannot use it for, I would not recommend it for processing root crops or low value products. So it should be for fruits, meats, or seafoods. So the food step consulting can help the dried fruit processors if they are interested on the technology and adopting this technology for their business. And we can help from feasibility study to sourcing of the vacuum frying equipment, including the making of the product prototype, as well as, of course, remember I said that you need to determine experimentally the conditions specific to each product, as well as development of commercial production of the dried products. And we can guide you through it. So I think at that point, let me end my talk, and I am open for question and answers.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Lemuel Demante. Imagine all the possibilities that you can do with these scientific processes that you can apply in food. And thank you so much for the elaborate discussion on fruit drying. If you think about it, there's a lot of work and processes that are put into making our favorite delicacies that we are loving today. And I'm sure you guys who are present today have a lot of questions to ask our wonderful speaker. So this is the time where you can do so. Just type in your questions in the chat box, and we will have Dr. Diamante answer them for you. So please type it in, or if you want, we can let you like ask your question live.
Yeah, you can
If you want to speak, then you can speak.
unmute.
Yeah, you can unmute yourselves. Okay, we have one question from Celine Ko. She says, how much budget or what is the range one should initially invest on feasible study services?
Can you repeat that again? Feasibility study, or what was
How
that?
much should initially invest on a feasible study service?
I actually did some cost and return analysis for this is although this is for seafoods, and it would probably not so different with dried fruits. I would suggest probably that because the vacuum fryer that I have shown is just a batch type dryer, vacuum fryer. So the drawback of a batch type vacuum fryer is it has very limited volume of production. So I would suggest that you need to go and secure a continuous type vacuum fryer so that your volume of production will go up, and therefore, but of course, as a result of that, I remember that feasibility study that we've done was for initially a big production for about $20 million. 20 million pesos, and that is processing for seafood products. Because the reason for that is the continuous fryer is expensive, but it will not stop small processors to probably just secure several, because for example, the fruit drying industry, I long time ago, I've been a consultant for a dried mango company in Cebu, and most of the dryers they have are mostly bathtub dryers. So it will probably not stop as well the dried fruit industry to invest in that. So it's a matter of just having several batch vacuum fryers set up, and you can still probably get the required volume. So for a smaller scale, I could not be very sure, but it would definitely runs in millions, because the vacuum fryer, the smallest vacuum fryer I saw in the market is about 5 kilogram, and that cost already about 500,000 pesos. So
Wow.
if you have, yeah, 500,000 pesos for a 5 kilogram capacity vacuum fryer. But the good thing about this technology is that for a period of, for example, 8-hour operation, you can have several batches that you can process, because as I've said, it's only about 30 minutes to 1 hour. So you can, probably for one day, you can have maybe six batches processed in the vacuum fryer. So that would multiply your capacity. So for example, if you are producing maybe, usually if you put in 5 kilos, it's about 20% yield. So that's about 1 kilogram. And if you sell about a 50-gram sample, so that's about 20 pieces. So if you have it 6 batches in a day, then you have 6 kilogram. But of course, there are other vacuum fryers, like there's a vacuum fryer as soda about 20 kilogram batch type. And that the price of that would be several millions now. So this is the, as I've said, the drawback of this technology is it's going to be expensive. But if the company will invest on it, the based on the cost and return I have done, in 1 year you can recoup all the expenses you have. That is based on the assumption that you can dispose of all of the vacuum fried products that you have. Yeah, so it's not going to be cheap if you're thinking, but I know a lot of the dried fruit processors are probably also spending millions as well to establish a plant. Okay, did I answer the question?
I think Celine would agree. But that's a really great investment. We have a question following up that question. We have a question from Yentel Romero. She says, where can we purchase the vacuum fryer?
Okay, there's a lot now of vacuum fryers being sold from China, from India, from Vietnam, from Thailand. And luckily in the Philippines, before I left there in 2008, the UST was have designs of vacuum fryers, but I've used that design. It's not a very good design actually. So I would suggest that if you, because like for example, the vacuum fryers I saw from Vietnam, Thailand, China, and India are really very good. It looks very commercial already. So yeah, so it's got to be from outside the Philippines.
All right. Good luck to anyone who wants to purchase a vacuum fryer. We have Queenie asking a question. Good afternoon po. May I know why is it advisable to use the technology in high value products and not in root crops as mentioned earlier?
The reason for that is the price of the product will be expensive because of the technology applied to it. So if you process premium products like fruits and seafoods and meats, then you can command a higher price. Root crops, the problem with root crops is you cannot, for example, if you sell 50-gram root crops for 200 pesos, people will not buy it. But if you sell 50 grams dried mango, dried jackfruit for 200 pesos, and that is actually the prevailing price as well. Even if you convert the prices from abroad, if you search it, it is commanding that kind of price. So that's the reason why I would not recommend it for low value materials like root crops.
All right. Hope that answered your question, Queenie. We have another question from Rafael Nepomuceno. Since earlier, Dr. Lemuel, you mentioned the price for a vacuum air fryer. He is asking, how much would it cost to purchase a unit of a hot air dryer?
Correction, that is not a vacuum air fryer. It is a vacuum fryer, and it has a different principle from a vacuum air fryer. So that vacuum fryer is different from an air fryer or a vacuum air dryer. No, they are different. So what was the question again? The price?
Yes, the price for a hot air dryer. That's what he asked.
Well, the price of the hot air dryer, you can source it locally. You can buy it within the Philippines. So when I left for New Zealand, I think we were able to purchase, for example, a 300 kilogram capacity dryer from Quezon Enterprises in Bato for, I think, about 50,000 pesos during that time. And that was like early 2000. So I'm not familiar anymore how much are the prevailing prices in the Philippines. So it's much cheaper. So imagine if you have a 50,000, or let's say we double that up to maybe 300,000 by this time now, and it will produce, so 300 kilogram capacity. If you assume a 20% yield as well, so that's like 60 kilograms. But you get that 60 kilogram of dried product after 8 to 12 hours of drying. If you have a vacuum fryer of, say, a 10 kilogram capacity vacuum fryer, so you have, and then you can process in a day about 6 times. So that's 10 kilograms is 20% of that is 2 kilos. So you multiply that as well. And so the prices, I'm not really abreast of all the prices here, but definitely it's going to be expensive for a vacuum fryer. So that's why you work that out, and it would turn out usually that the prices for a vacuum fried product will range between 200 to 300 pesos per 50 kilogram. But take note, the 50 kilogram here is not like potato chips, which doesn't expand. The vacuum fried products have bulk up, no? Meaning it's very bulky. So the 50 kilograms, the 50 grams would look would look plenty in a pack because of the low density it has. So it has bigger bulk. Unlike dried products, like dried fruits, it compacts. So your 50 grams doesn't look much. So you can probably even get away with just putting in 30 grams in a pack. Like if you recall that vacuum fried jackfruit in the Philippines, we only put in 30 grams in a pack, and it's still already very acceptable to the consumers.
Yeah, tips and tricks
Thanks.
from the expert. So it sounds like a really good investment and a good business to venture into. We have Mary Marietta asking, where can we try some trials in the Philippines? Can VSU accommodate private companies? Thank you.
When I left BSU, Visayas State University, there was a working vacuum fryer there, but I don't know if it's still working. And so you just check with BSU. Yeah, because before we are open for product development for other companies. When I was there then, I don't know now. So, or you can also observe the buy-by processor as the process as well, and you can ask where they got their vacuum fryers. So definitely just inquire straight to the Visayas State University if the vacuum fryer is still available there, because I really don't know now.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Lemuel. We actually have an attendee from DTI Negros Oriental, Mr. Arnil. He is asking, or he is saying, we are working for MSME development. How can we tap the services of Food Step Consulting, and how much would it cost?
Is this Arnel Ideg?
Yes, yes, Sir Lam.
Yes.
Afternoon.
Kamusta, Arnel?
Okay na, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Well, right now we are in COVID times. That's the problem right now. Because if we are not in COVID times, then we have a free flow of. So right now, maybe we can advise only in terms of. We can, for example, do the cost and return analysis or feasibility of if you plan on venturing on a specific fruits or other products. And then we can work out what size you can use that it will still come out cost effective. So we can work that out, even if I if, for example, me have to go to the Philippines. But eventually, once everything is in place, then we can decide. As I've said in the last slide, I said that I can help actually in sourcing what is the where you can get the right vacuum fryer to use for the project, and so on. So all of that could be done without me present in the Philippines. So as to the price, we can still work it out because this is still we are still just on the initial stage of our food step consultancy. So maybe we can just talk it over.
Expensive, sir, or affordable?
Well, my purpose is really to help. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's great.
it will not be in dollars, for example.
In peso.
It will be in pesos. But I have to. Actually, my son is the CEO of this Lazy Labs, which umbrellas the food step consultancy. So I have to talk with him about that. Yeah, but I definitely wants to help the fruit drying industry.
Okay.
And
Kanang good, sir. Kanang we are planning to set up a vacuum frying shared service facility here in Negros.
so you are working with government.
Yeah, the Department of Trade and Industry,
All
sir.
right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so that's good. But I don't know if there are vacuum fryer manufacturer in the Philippines. Have you located one already?
There are some suppliers, but maybe I can send to you the specifications so you can help in evaluating if these are state of the art or good kind of vacuum frying equipment.
Yeah. Actually, that's good. Yeah. So it's good because that's the way to expose the interested parties. So because since you are working with the government, so it's basically like what happened in BSU. But as to the BSU, whether the equipment there is still there, I'm not sure anymore. So it's good at least in that part of the Philippines in Negros Oriental, there will be an equipment there that could be used for exploring. Yeah, but then I can also give advice, like for example, what fruit, and then anticipate what are the possible problems if you decide on a specific fruit, and so on.
And maybe, sir, more importantly, on the specifications of the equipment.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Good.
All right. Thank you so much, Arniel. For more inquiries, you can message Food Step Consulting on Facebook at www.facebook.com/foodstepconsulting. You can search us on there. We have another question from Rafael Nepomuceno saying, "Sir, considering that there are vitamins that are water soluble and sensitive to heat, like vitamin C, then how does hot air drying or vacuum frying affect the presence of such vitamins?"
Okay. For hot air drying, it is going to be affected really. But for vacuum frying, for example, when I was at Lincoln University here in New Zealand, I processed a vacuum fried gold kiwi fruit. And kiwi fruit have very high vitamin C. So I process it at 80 degrees centigrade for so many minutes under vacuum. The level of the vitamin C still goes down because of the temperature involved, but at a shorter time. But as a result also, because it concentrates, because of the drying process, you end up with a dried product. It also concentrates the vitamin C. So for example, I don't have it. I think I remember it's probably have from the 100% vitamin C of gold kiwi fruit, I think it has about 50% of the vitamin C. But it is a high level already, like because, for example, I think the RDA for vitamin C is about 45, if I'm not mistaken. It still has about 80 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams. So it's still high because the initial vitamin C of gold kiwi fruit is around 200 to 300 milligrams. So if you start with a high vitamin C product, even if there is some deterioration, you still have a high vitamin C vacuum fried as a result. Did I answer the question?
Please let us know if your question was answered or you're satisfied with the question, Rafael Nepomuceno. Thank you so much for that. We have actually another question from Christine May Alhambra.
Okay.
Thank you, Rafael. From Christine May Alhambra saying, can you recommend characteristics or criteria of fruits that are applicable for vacuum frying? For example, the fruit's moisture content, maturity, or fiber content.
It's more on the solids content, or well, indirectly, it has bearing as well on the moisture content. So actually, the best product for vacuum frying is a fruit that is still sort of starchy before it turns ripe. So a good example is jackfruit. That's a very good, because if you process jackfruit at about half-ripe stage, it's still a bit starchy, but it has already started to sweeten. So that's a very good type of product. When I was back in the Philippines then, I tried mango, but because I don't have control of the available mango, so if you process a ripe mango, your yield will be quite low because there's a lot of moisture in mango. So as a result, there's very little product left after that. But as I've said, as you remember, there was some vacuum fried mango from other countries that is already available. So my suspicion is they probably process fruits at the half-ripe stage. So I think if you can find a fruit that has high solids content already or with less moisture, and then you can process it at half-ripe stage, then that could be a good product to process. Did I answer the question?
All right, thank you so much. It seems so. He's quiet. All right, we have an attendee from ProFood Technician saying, good afternoon, Dr. Lemuel. What is the ideal moisture content of product prior to vacuum frying?
Well, it depends on the fruit that you are processing. You have no control on that already, for example. But partly you have because if you process a half-ripe fruit, it will have lesser moisture compared with a fully ripe fruit. So that's where you will have a play around on the moisture content. But it doesn't matter. And I recommend that the process that you should be using will be to freeze the sample prior to vacuum frying, because that would also help in producing a good texture of the final product. Because as I've said, when you vacuum fry a frozen product, the moisture from the inside of the product would sublime instead of just doing diffusion. It will sublime. So the leftover pores or spaces of the moisture that evaporated will be left as pores, and that would make the product crunchy. But as to what is the ideal moisture content to start with, you can start anything on any product, and it's a matter. And I've specified that for each product, you have to determine experimentally the condition that you need to use. So you have to do evaluation experiments first. And then that would answer the question, what fruit will be good for vacuum frying and what fruit is not good for vacuum frying. So you have to carry out some kind of experiments first. You cannot just decide, oh, okay, I want to vacuum fry what sort of product? For example, maybe a ripe banana. No, you have to work out first because, like for example, there are many varieties of bananas. Some variety of banana may not be a good candidate for vacuum frying. Some varieties will. So it depends. So you have to carry out experiments. So you have to do like product development. Yes. Okay.
Right, there are many factors that affect it. To answer Yura Dil of DTI Bohol, you can message us on Facebook. That's www.facebook.com/foodstep-consulting. We have Janelle Ferrares asking, do you give e-certificates for this webinar?
I cannot answer that. Maybe the administrator of
Yeah.
this.
So to answer for
that.
everyone who would be interested in receiving an e-certificate for this, please just do type your name as well as your email address on the chat, and then we will send one over to follow.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you so much, admin of Lazy Labs. All right, let's move on. We have another question from Yentel Rose asking, can I use this for drying fish, or is this only applicable in fruits?
Oh, as I mentioned earlier, that I have successfully applied this for seafoods, including fish, when I was back at Lincoln University, because we did many experiments on seafoods that includes salmon and some of their local fish here, and prawns, shrimp, and it is very applicable because fish and seafoods are high value products, and it is a very good candidate for vacuum frying because you can command higher prices for those. Yes, so the answer is yes.
All right, thank you so much. Very interesting.
In addition, could I just add, like for example, the dried, the bulinaw, the delish is a very good. So if you vacuum fry dried bulinaw already and vacuum fry it, it will produce a crunchy product, but it will be safe, shelf stable. So that's a very good example of doing that instead of processing fresh. Yeah, so that's one example of a vacuum fried fish.
Makes me hungry. We have a question from Yoli right here. I'm not too sure what she is asking about this, but it says, is it available in gas or in electricity?
When I was back in the Philippines, I've seen a DOST designed vacuum fryer where they were using gas for heating. That's heating of the oil. But definitely for running the vacuum pump, you need an electricity. So your heating could be electric, but it could be gas as well. But the vacuum pump will be electricity.
All right, thank you so much. Reminding everybody, to those who want a certificate for this webinar, please send in your complete name together with your email address so that we can send it to you, because we can't send it to you if it's just your name. Anyway, we have Lenny Rose Pena asking, is it possible for oyster mushroom po?
Oh, yes. But I need to evaluate, because I remember back at Lincoln University, we process mushroom, but the problem with the mushroom, it easily absorbs the oil. So you'll end up with but I'm not saying that all mushrooms will be, So you have to do an experiment on what variety of mushroom might be appropriate, because I've seen in from China vacuum fried mushroom. So they must have a specific variety of mushroom for that. But the variety of mushroom I've used here in New Zealand during my experiments have all absorbed much oil. So we just did not pursue that.
Okay. Speaking of mushrooms, Yoradil from BTI Bohol is asking about it, saying, "Sir, I have an assisted enterprise who is producing mushroom chicharron. Can she use the technology?"
Okay, that's new to me. Must. So is that really fried mushroom?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Sir Lem?
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I have an enterprise producing mushroom chicharron, but that's the problem with her product is that it gets so oily. So I
Yes.
understand when you said that the problem
Mm.
also with chicharron is it gets oily.
Mm.
Sir, what I have another question. What's the extent of your consultancy? Can you do product development?
Yeah, if you've seen that last slide, we can do all the way. But at this present time, COVID times, no, I could not come to the Philippines just like that. But yeah, from the initial planning, from, as I've said, feasibility up to prototype production, and then eventually the commercial production, we're open all the way. Yeah. By the way, Yuradil are my former student, but I thought who Yuradil was. Yeah, because I saw your picture now. Kumusta?
Okay lang. Sir,
Yeah.
is there an available parang tawag dito, laboratory size tawag,
Vacuum fryer.
fryer?
You better inquire from the issue if they still have the vacuum fryer. And maybe Arnel, if he is able to establish a vacuum fryer in Negros Oriental.
And
Or
I
maybe you in the Bohol, you should get some funding.
yeah, we can find some funds. We're the same
Uh,
region. Me and Arnel
yeah.
are working in the same region also.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm sure, like for example, the politicians, a lot of them will probably, because this is a new technology. Well, actually, it's been around, but I'm trying to hype it up again because I've seen that there's so many products already developed in the other countries, and in the Philippines, it's still vacuum fried jackfruit.
Yeah,
So
they
we
find
were
it
left out.
expensive, sir. They
We're
find
left
it
behind.
expensive. That's why we at the Department of Trade and Industry, we're trying to look at shared service facilities where we can provide
Yes,
them.
I think that's the best way, because that way you can, because it is a shared service facility, it will usually be funded from the government. So it doesn't really matter how much is the price there. But if the users will be able to see how it's done, and they might be interested to invest on that actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a
Okay.
follow up from a while ago. So for the people interested in the e-certificates, we sent a form, a Google Docs form. Just do type your name as well as your email on that, so it'll generate into our our database, and then we can send one over. It'll be a lot easier than having to type your full name as in the chat, so that there's longevity. So yeah, just please go visit the chat. There is a Google Docs form there. Please do click it and fill it up. So this is a question that we got from one of the pre-registered applicants, Doc Lem. So
Mhm.
with since you have such a historied, you have such a historied experience, how feasible is food technology as a career? Like what are the benefits of having food technology as your career down the line?
Well, I think because food is needed by people, so definitely it is a very bright career, because we have lots of food companies because the food doesn't only cover actually just food, it includes beverage. So there is a very good potentials for somebody. Well, my students here who are at present have all been employed after they have graduated. So I think their employment potential is very high.
So another question, sir. So if people are interested in, advancing their career outside of the academe or through the academe, how do they get to the same point that you reached, in which you were able to do all of these research, getting grants from another country, being a visiting professor to all of these other universities in the United States, Japan, as well as other countries in the Southeast Asia and even New Zealand? How would they approach getting into that route?
Well, if you really want to go follow, like for example, the path that I did, it has to be through the academy. So it's got to be in the university because because once you're in the industry, sometimes, for example, if you got a PhD, especially in the Philippines, if you got a PhD in the industry, you're already you're too qualified. You're overqualified. So that's the problem. But going master's, PhD, and even postdoctoral, if you are in the university, then it's not going to be a problem. So you have to decide if you want to work in the food industry, maybe you can just get earn at the master's level and then just earn more and more experience along the way. So I don't advise for you to go farther than a master's if you just work in the food industry. But if you want to pursue up to PhD level and even postdoctoral, then it's got to be in the university. That's the only way you have to. Or some research centers, like for example, in the Visayas State University, there's the Phil Root Crops. So that's a research center. So you are not teaching there, but you still progress because it's a research center within the university. So that there you can also pursue higher degrees, like the path that I did. So research centers or university is the only path that you can have in order to sort of follow the path that I did.
So
But for those in the food industry, just earn a master's and then earn more experience, and that's the best way.
Okay. So we have one last pre-screen question, Doc Lem. So it says here that I can see from your achievements that you were actually given grants in New Zealand. So the question here asks, how did you get to the point where another country scouted you out and wanted you to pursue studies in their country? How do you get to that point where a country will actively seek you out for your professional experience and offer to give you citizenship for the people who are interested in exploring opportunities outside of the Philippines? How would they get to that point?
Well, I'll probably just give a background. So when I finished my BS degree, I joined Visayas State College of Agriculture then, which is now the Visayas State University. And from there, I was sent out on a scholarship for my master's. And then next time around, I was able to get a PhD scholarship. And then so I went back again to New Zealand to earn my PhD degree. But after that, I returned to Visayas State University and worked. And then, because my scholarships are government scholarship, I owed service contract to the government. I have to serve it. And by 2005, actually, I finished all my service contract, but I didn't still stayed on up to 2008. And then, well, they did not seek me, but I have to look for jobs in New Zealand. And during that time, there was an advertised position for a lecturer in food technology. at Lincoln University. And then I applied for it, and I was lucky to be considered for the position as well, probably because of my master's and PhD from New Zealand. And then from there, we have grants, but we are a project team, so it's not only me. There's another PhD degree holder, and then somebody. So we have a team that would ask, like what's happening also in the Philippines. You have to make a research proposal and then submit it to funding agencies. Like in the Philippines, it's PICARD. Here in New Zealand, it's the MBIA, or the Ministry of Business and Enterprise and Development, and so on. So, and then it's a competitive submission of projects. So we were lucky. My first 5 years in Lincoln University, we were lucky to keep on getting projects. But after the 6th year, we were unlucky already. And my position at Lincoln University was very dependent on project funding. So when there was not research funding already, I was let go by the university already because they can't afford my senior lecturer level position. So I have to apply for some other job. And I got lucky as well to get a full-time research position here at Otago University in Dunedin, which is, this time it's a private company. So I do the R&D for the company, like the product and process development. And yeah, and then that's how I progress into my, and of course, during that time, when I was at Lincoln University, I was able to get postdoctoral or research fellowship. And when I was also at Visayas State University, I got that other research fellowship and visiting some scientists as well in the US and so on. So, because a lot of these opportunities is very readily available when you are in the university or a research center, but it's not very easy if you're already in the industry.
I see. Wow, that's actually super insightful. So we actually have just shy of 20 minutes left for the remainder of this webinar. So I would like to advise everyone who is present today that please do like the page at the Food Step Consulting on Facebook. So we're actually planning to do a multi-series webinar based on the different topics. So this is actually the most introductory topic. Sir Lemuel was actually super interested in talking a lot about like what are the other topics that you were interested in talking about again, Dr. Lem?
Bioactives.
Yes,
Well,
bioactives.
My present work right now as a senior food technologist with Separex Nutritionals is we extract bioactives from dairy materials. So like a good example of a dairy material is when you make cheese from milk, the liquid portion of that cheese is the whey. And the whey, if you dry that, that's the whey protein. But within that whey protein, the liquid portion further contains bioactives like immunoglobulins, lactoferrin, and so on. So that's how our company, so we extract this in greater quantity and in concentrated form and even probably in powder form, and we sell it to milk formula maker, baby formula, or sports nutrition companies, and they add these bioactives into their products.
Okay.
But actually, it doesn't have to be dairy only. You can extract also bioactives from, like in the Philippines. The one I saw is probably, if you recall our tuna industry, where they process this. So a lot of the guts or yung mga do you have
innards?
Yeah, the innards of the fish, usually that get thrown out. But there's lots of bioactives on those. So you can probably extract that as well.
Wow. So without giving anything too much away, they're gonna have to wait for our next webinar, Sir Lem. I know you're super excited to talk about this, so he was actually fighting tooth and nail to talk about this. But we're like, let's start with an introductory topic. So yeah, so we just have a few minutes left. So this is like the last round of questions. So we'll try to close everything by 5:20. If there are no other questions, T.
Oh, we do have a question. I think Yuradil is raising her hand.
Okay.
That's the same thing as I asked early on. So it's about the mushroom and how the extent of the consultancy.
All right.
Yeah, I think the admin will probably work that out.
Yeah, because actually, sir, as much as our job is concerned, although we know about how to do it, but we need to outsource it now because there's much of tasks already in our plate. So we need to outsource the product.
So, are they producing how much? How much mushroom are they producing?
Actually, sir, this specific enterprise has like several houses of mushrooms, and before COVID, she's already producing and supplying in Cebu, in Rostans, and there's another one high-end mall. But then when COVID came, so all those.
They want to preserve the mushroom if possible. So
But before that, also she already started doing this fried, mushroom chicharon, and it's selling well in the market. So,
okay,
but the
but
problem
I'm sure.
is the oiliness of the
Yeah.
product. So she tapped with the OSP for the de-oiler.
Hmm.
The OSP
Actually, a
program, yeah.
lot of the vacuum fryers have a de-oiling system because remember, I said that after the required time, you raise up the basket above the oil, and a lot of the vacuum fryers from abroad have a spinner motor on top of this basket.
Mm,
So you turn that on, and it would spin the excess oil on the surface. But since it's also under vacuum, it facilitates the release of this. But again, based on our experience, we cannot get rid all of the oil. It's still there. So because the one that penetrates to the very interior, yeah. So I'd say probably I'm not familiar with the oyster mushroom. I wonder. But
she,
if you said that your client is already selling your product, so it's a matter of just improving further the.
Yeah, because I introduced her actually the vacuum frying technology, and since we don't have it in Bohol, she can actually go and try it for
Yeah.
herself. So it's just parang na-park lang yung idea na
Okay.
ganoon. But
Yeah. So
oh,
hopefully you have a common service facility set up there for vacuum frying, and
hopefully, but she's having like contemplating to buy it for her own. So
okay, that's good.
that's why, and I invited her actually, but I'm not seeing her in the list of participants. Hopefully, I'll just tell him to contact with the consultancy.
Yeah, but I'm sure it's a matter of finding the right conditions and probably some pre-treatments.
That's why she's also asking if there's a laboratory size thing for the vacuum frying, because she wants me and her to work on it.
As I've said, I've seen 2 kilogram capacity or a 5 kilogram capacity vacuum fryer.
Yeah, at least for us.
Being sold there.
Yes, sir.
But of course, if you use a small size, it will not be commercially viable.
I think for product development.
For product development, yes, yeah.
Yes, and also we also have a priority sector in DTI. We call it processed fruits and nuts.
All right, yeah.
We also have funds for it. So Arnil and I, and also one food tech in DTI Cebu, it's Nelly. We'd like to work out the funds of how.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think it's high time now that Philippines will go into vacuum frying again.
Yeah, we're some other countries are actually selling their vacuum fried products here in the Philippines.
as I've said, I searched for in Shopee Philippines, and the vacuum fry that came out is from Vietnam. My
And,
gosh.
and they're frying concert, they're frying okra, whatever they have in,
Yeah,
whatever
you
they
can
have
use
in
it.
their backyard.
Yeah,
But the
so-
one I was planning, oh, that's one another plan of mine. If we can sort of get investor, vacuum frying of fish and seafoods would be a very good investment actually for a
Mm. So
business.
So to whoever is interested in starting up a business now and is interested in getting Dr.
But of course,
Lemuel,
you need money.
yeah, getting
That's
Dr. Lemuel to do your project research and development as well as process development, then yeah, you could just hit us up at Food Step Consulting on Facebook. So yeah, once again, please do like our page because we are going to have multiple webinars just to not only introduce the Philippines about more about advanced technologies in food, but also who knows, the people who are listening now are probably interested in going down a similar path to Dr. Lemuel. So yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. We don't have any more questions coming through. So yeah, on behalf of Food Step Consulting and
Thank you very
Dr.
much,
Lemuel,
everyone.
but sir, would you like to say some closing remarks before we go?
Okay. And I am very happy that there's a good response for this seminar, and seeing also old familiar faces, my former students in the audience as well.
We miss you,
But,
sir.
but I really feel that maybe it's about time now for the Philippines to again go back to this technology and apply it to some other products, not only jackfruit. That's my feeling really. That so I'm glad that at least this is a start, and with those who were able to attend this, would transfer what they learned from to others, and yeah, because definitely this is the best way to give a boost to this technology, and hopefully some interested businessmen. Actually, before I
Sir,
left for yes, as a, let me finish. Before I left actually for New Zealand, there was a big investor that talked over to me. He said he wants to process vacuum fried jackfruit in big quantity because he's already a processor of bananas, fried bananas, but of course using only ordinary frying. But he said, I need about 1 ton a day of jackfruit, and the whole Region 8 could not supply that. You see, because when you go commercial, you really need the big plantation to supply so that you have continuous production. And that's the problem really in the Philippines. If you don't have a continuous production of raw materials, because you cannot afford that the very expensive equipment is just standing idle there because you cannot process anymore because there's no more raw materials. So yeah, that's just one thing. So anyway, thank you very much for everyone who attended, and hopefully you can attend again another topic that we will have for another webinar.
Yes, that's right. So
Yes.
for more inquiries and for further discussions, again, please follow Foodstep Consulting at facebook.com/Foodstep Consulting. You can ask more questions there, and we thank you for your attendance and your interest in this topic. So on behalf of everybody at Foodstep Consulting, we hope you have a great evening and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.